Um, Very quickly, you are obviously an American and live in America, and you have quite recently just completely changed your timeline over there.
Yeah.
What's it like now that the big man is back in the house?
Ah.
Now that daddy's home?
Invigorating. It's very invigorating. Now, the energy is completely shifted for those of us that believe in him. I'm sure if you were to ask somebody else that didn't believe in him, it would be terrifying, but un- not correctly so, because nothing will happen to them other than their drama in their head. But it's amazing. It's amazing because there's hope again. And I know that hope is probably one of the biggest emotions. When you have hope, you can get through things. I know we talked about that sort of on the nervous system, or that was sort of my thing growing up, is having hope that something would happen that would get better. I think Americans have, no, I don't think. I know that the general mass population have hope again.
So that's interesting because the English are probably staring down the barrel of a gun that they feel has no hope. And I don't see it like that. I see it as a necessary process. I think there is a near 200-year love affair with communism and socialism in England. And it has to end. I mean, Marx wrote his works here. He's buried here. The money came from here. The money for Lenin came from London and the United States. The money from Mao came from London. There is, there's something that's got to be uprooted here. We have had a Fabian socialist organisation advise every Labour cabinet that's ever been in power. So there's something seriously wrong that needs to get dug out. So I don't see it as a hopeless opportunity, but there are a lot of people do. What would you say to the English who are currently kind of residing in a town that has no hope?
Well, I'm not a person who sits under a rock. So this is going to maybe sound harsh to some, but you make your own hope. Um, I would say most of America was hopeless for the last 4 years. I was not. I was not. But I was also the person that did not wear the mask ever. I got kicked out of stores. I convinced other people in stores to take their masks off. Um, I will never forget the one time I went into Safeway in my little town, and they were pretty good because they didn't demand you to have the mask, but they did. But I was literally, every time I shopped, I was the only person. So I was coming in without my mask, and there was a mom with probably a 4 year old, and the 4 year old was sobbing, which is horrible with a mask, right? Because you can't breathe. And the mom looked at me and she's like, How? How can you not wear a mask? And I started to tell her I was a personal trainer and a nutritionist, and I also knew stuff about the nervous system and that these were actually killing us slowly and were very horrible, and that you didn't have to wear them, and that if you were in a grocery store where everybody touched the food in the shelves, were you really, so I started going through a little bit of quick science with her. And she said, So do you think it's safe for me to have my child without one? Because this is miserable for her. And I said, Oh, it's more than safe. It's healthier for her to not have it because she's not sick. And I said, and so she reaches down and she takes the mask off of her daughter, and her daughter just beamed and gave her mom this huge hug. And the look on that lady's face, that was pretty amazing. That was pretty damn amazing. And so every time I went into a store, it was somebody. One time it was a military guy that was just, I used to teach him when I was a high school teacher. And he was looking at me, he's like, Miss Myers, why are you not wearing a mask? And I'm like, Sam, I know you're smarter than this. What are you doing? And so he took his off before. And that is hope. Because each time I was able to talk to somebody to take their mask off, that gave them hope that they weren't alone, hope that somebody cared about them. And like every time there was kids in a store that were wearing a mask and they couldn't see people's faces, I made sure I would play peekaboo with them or smile with them or something to give them hope. And my hope came from the fact that I believed that there was some sanity left in people, that there was some humanity left in people, because people were just angry. Because when you can't see people's faces and you can't interact with emotions, you become this mind-numb robot. So I would say for you over there, I know it's not the same now because you don't have to wear masks. Who knows what but to find humanity within yourself each day so that you can then share that humanity. Because the more, you're either going to pass on one of two things. Every single one of us have the ability to pass on hope and joy and humanity, or frustration, anger, revenge, and anything bitter. Those are the two vibrations that we can pass on each day. And I think if you can find and dig in and find hope, it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be, oh, I hope that this election goes this way, or I hope that, because those are too big, those are too vast. That was never my hope. My hope each day was, I hope I can find something to smile about. I hope I can cause someone else to smile. I hope somebody gets a little bit of logic in their brain after I talk to them, or small things, because those are the little seeds that grow. So you have to be strong. I mean, I gave up everything. I mean, I lost all of my Instagram followers, which doesn't seem bad other than it was my business. So then nobody could see my business, right? And my husband, who's my ex, he was at a job where he was forced to get the shot. And I said, no, we'll live in a cardboard box before you get that shot. And that was hard. And he, even to the day, he's like, thank you. I would have taken it had it not been for you. Because it was so miserable at his work. He had to work an extra hour and a half each day for 10 months because it took him that long every day to have the test. So he would have to go in an hour and a half early. So they would do the test. They always made it miserable and long. So every day, an hour and a half was added to his day. And every day it was the stress of, if it comes back positive, and they mind fear-mongered you. So you have to be strong enough to know that the meaner and the more aggressive the government gets, that's because they know they have that much less to stand on. So I guess find the hope in yourself and then pass that hope on and be strong. I got so frustrated with the people that were like, oh, I'm going to put a mask on so I can go get a cup of coffee. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're going to sell our freedom for a cup of coffee? I'm not willing to sell it for my husband's job or my job. And you're going to sell it for a cup of coffee? And I think, to be honest, I think it did one of two things. And this is a way to find hope. When you're a strong person and you know you can make it through, you get the opportunity to find other strong people. Because it was very rare for me to find a very strong person. But when I did, that was a huge bond. And it even is a huge bond for me now as I'm dating. I know that I would never date a man who put a mask on. Because I want a man stronger than me. And if he succumbed to that, then he's not a strong man. And I know that's harsh for some people to hear, but, and they'll come back with, oh, but I would have lost my house. I would have lost my job. Well, I was looking at that and I was willing to do it. And I did it. And if more people, I guess this is the thing. This is what I would tell people. This is what I told people when we were in the midst of it ourselves. There's a movie, Bug's Life. Have you seen Bug's Life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bug's Life. So the ants and the grasshoppers, right? And there's just this little ant that's supposedly nobody and he can't do his job right and blah, blah, blah. But he gets the ants to work together. There was one thing I could say to a nation going through this. You guys are the ants. The government is the grasshoppers. And they think they can control you. There is so many more of the ants than there are the grasshoppers. And we have to remember that. And if people had actually put their brains together and put a little bit of courage in their coffee in the morning, we never would have gone through what we went through. But people were terrified. People were scared for no reason. They had lost their faith and lost their courage. And so if more people, because I saw it when we had rallies and 100 people would come, and next time 2,000 people would come, and the next time 3,000. And that just continues to multiply. So have the courage to speak out and stand up. It's going to go good in the long run. And the more ants that get together, faster you get this over with.